Peter Faleskini calls himself a guide out of midlife crisis. Now he leads one of the largest communities of men navigating that middle stretch. And the intention is not to escape it, but to face it head on. Peter, thanks for being here. I'm curious. When we hear midlife crisis, still think of some guy dumping his wife, buying a convertible, and chasing the hot secretary. How has that changed, or is that still the what's happening?
First, thank you for the invitation to your show. I'm really looking forward to our conversation. Yes, all that you mentioned is still true. So, the midlife crisis term was first utilized in the 60s or late 60s, and the cars have changed a bit. Now, midlife crisis looks a bit, let's say, different, or the how we recognize it has changed. But there's still this huge challenge inside all of us because until we come in the midlife, we are induced with goals from society, all these expectations put on us, expectation from our family, from our peers, from our school system, what we should achieve, what we should be. What's the right person to marry? Where should we live? What car should we drive? Every expectation. So we need to have a family wagon or SUV now or something like that. And we need to go on vacation at this popular spot. And when we retire, we'll go to Florida and stuff like that. That is what I would call somehow induced in us. It's societal induced expectations. And when we are 40 or just thereabouts from, let's say, 35 to 50, we start recognizing that, okay, we have all of this. We have great job. We have a lot of money. We can afford practically anything, but we're not happy. And we feel stuck. And we start asking ourselves, is that it? And that is the time if we don't have a mentor, if we don't have someone to help us go through that, that is the time when we buy a convertible. That is the time when we start flirting with our secretary because she might be younger than our wife. That is the time when we start taking on extreme sports because we can still run a marathon. and but that is the negative effect, or that shows us that the midlife crisis was not being resolved. That means that we're just digging deeper, or we get into more problems, and it will be a more complex solution that will be required that will help us resolve our midlife crisis.
I'm curious how you got into this work. I'm guessing you had your own crash, but what happened that led you into doing this work?
Okay. I got divorced. I didn't flirt with my secretary. I bought a whole collection of cars, not just one car, so guilty. And of course, the house here and there and everywhere. And um, basically, I I started realizing, okay, I did everything that was expected of me. I was a CEO of a company. I had a chauffeur-driven car. I was flying a jet around, and I was investment banker. Everybody knew me, and I had so many friends. But I feel completely lost, inadequate. That was not my thing. All I ever wanted to do was research, and I always had these goals. When I do this, then this will happen. And then I just had to sit down, check my bucket list, and everything was, when I achieve this, this will happen. And I wrote down my bucket list again, and I see, okay, so from 42 items on my bucket list, 26 I could do right now without money, and it was just taking time to. And I was always a city guy, but then I said, okay, I want to try to live on a farm, and I went to family farm and said, okay, let's do it. Let's try. Okay, I want to have animals. And I said, okay, I'll buy some goats, horses, stuff like that. And this is how I first, that enabled me to stress down, to get out of the survival mode. And only then, and let's say that I got grounded, and only then I started recognizing, okay, I'm bitter. I'm 40 years old. I have so many resentments. I hold so many grudges. I have so many things that I'm not able to forgive. And I feel entitled to everything. So nothing is, I'm not grateful for anything. I am grateful. I say thank you, but I don't feel being grateful. So I started many different courses. I got many different therapists. I got many different coaches. But what I found out is that the therapy is really good for people that are not functional in society. So if you have a huge problem, then okay, the therapist will solve it to a degree that you can still function in society. So you can get a job, you can get health and stuff like that. So this is an extremely important work. But there's a huge lack for high performing people. Nobody is taking care of them. And these are not just a top 5 athletes or stuff like that. There, according to my opinion, there are 20 million high performing people in America that they take care of the whole country. These are the project managers that get things done. These are the sales people that sell stuff. These are the lawyers that get contracts in order or win a court case. These are artists that get things published and that, let's say, they present an idea of. So they're 20 million or even more high performing people, and nobody takes care of them. And all of them, or most of them, will get in a midlife and they will have a crisis because they will be the victim of their own success. Because the success, as we define it, is meet societal expectations. And all these people meet societal expectations. They have far beyond average income. They live in a nice neighborhood. They have nice things surrounding them. But they still feel stuck. They're not satisfied with their life. And nobody addresses that because they just see them as a spoiled people that have everything. And why are you not grateful? Why are you not happy in your new Porsche? That is the idea. What do you think your house in Hamptons is? You cannot be sad in your house in Hampton. That is the idea. And you travel, to Bali for vacation. How can you be depressed? That's impossible. So these are the, let's say, societal induced views. So if you are well off, let's say financially, then you shouldn't feel depressed. You shouldn't be anxious. Everything should be okay. Okay, you should maybe think about your drug addiction a bit more and alcohol use. That is something that society accepts as a problem. But that you're lost in your midlife and you're in midlife, so there's half of your life still to go and you don't have a direction. And then there are so many gurus that talk about spirituality and all this stuff, and so little people that go more in scientific way and be practical and understand that, for example, women are capable, so 80% of the women are capable of going through psychotherapy. So going through your problems with discussions and with talk and with accountability partner. But men, 80% of the men cannot go through psychotherapy or it will not be successful. They can attend sessions, but will not be successful because we process everything through our body. So there needs to be something physical involved. And as I mentioned, I'm against running marathons. Okay, you can go prepare yourself for a marathon so that you prove yourself, okay, I'm capable of running 26 miles. But you shouldn't do that as a coping mechanism. And this is midlife. We just realize, okay, I have so many coping mechanisms. I'm buying a luxury car because I don't feel adequate, despite how much I earn. And I still have, despite earning millions, I still have imposter syndrome. So why is that? And this is the midlife crisis as I define it. And a negative consequence of a midlife crisis are not just flirting with your secretary and buying a convertible where you can lose some money on it. But a lot of people get burned out, and in the worst case, they get cancer. And cancer is one of the, let's say, societal problems, because we now know that cancer is often caused by unhealthy relationships within the family and within the society. And that is why cancer is so widespread today, because we have huge problem with the relationship, and we don't listen to our body. We abuse our body. We believe it's so we make it as a possession, but we don't take care of the maintenance. We don't invest enough time in our body. First, there's a chronic problem with sleep in the US. So most people in their midlife have problems sleeping, and they don't sleep 6-7 hours a day would be, let's say, minimum. They don't sleep enough. So that results in hormonal imbalances. That results in many different situations that are not positive. And if we do that long enough, there's going to be a consequence.
Thanks for defining that. Thinking about my own midlife crisis, and I don't even know that I had the words for it. But what was interesting to me, the phrase that jumped out to me when you were talking was, is that it? And for myself, I think it was just hitting a point where I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. This is not fun. I only have X number of years left. I don't want to sit at a computer all day and listen to meetings. And is that the entry point to a what's under that? Is that it? Is it just seeing the time running out, or is it the search for something more meaningful? What's going on there?
I'll try to not bore you too much with that. According to Jung, Carl Jung was a student of Sigmund Freud. We still use it in therapy. His knowledge is still applicable. He developed archetypes, or he proposed archetypes. And what happens is that somehow, without fully understanding the archetypes, but we still notice that things are a bit off. So, as I said, for myself, I was forced to, due to the societal expectation, to live as a ruler. I come from a family where I was expected to be the next in kin and take over the family businesses and other stuff that I can take over, because that was how I was. But all I ever wanted was to be a researcher. And and that means that I lived in the shadow of a ruler archetype. So I was under impression that I know everything because I have bigger car and I have more people working for me. So I'm smarter. That is the shadow, and that is the fact that I was an asshole for most people most of the time. And people would not stood up because they had some kind of financial compensation from eating, from taking whatever I told them. And I said, okay. So for me, it was almost impossible to become aware of the things that I'm doing wrong. And only then, when the whole world has, turned against me, or so I believed, probably I was fighting the wrong battles, let's call it like this. I started realizing that I'm living in the wrong archetype, that I'm a researcher. I shouldn't be running the companies. So that is why we talked about my engagement in Vancouver. I have a company that's running everything for me. I'm just taking care of the content, because I do feel like a content creator also, because I have also a small podcast where I talk about midlife crisis. And I like that, so that someone else is taking care of the nitty gritty and everyday and all these operations, because this is not who I am. Yes, I was trained for that. I was raised for that. It was, let's say, societal expectations. In my case, also from family expectations are really strong, what I should do. But I'm not good as a CEO. So I'm not CEO anymore. I'm a content creator. I'm an explorer. But it took me 25 years in business to acknowledge that I'm not good as a CEO because I'm an asshole. So I might be good. I might be good in research because if you tackle data in a certain way, data is not getting offended, but people do get offended. And what CEOs are doing are um, they need to pool resources and they need to understand how to do it. And I was just too sure negotiator. So, and this is not good because I can be really nice now when I'm coach, when I'm content creator, when I'm a researcher, but I like doing that. And I have a lot of empathy for the people that come, for example, to my resorts or that go into our online programs. And I see a huge advancement, but I don't have any sympathy for as a CEO. I didn't have any sympathy for people. Why are you not delivering? I'm paying you about average paycheck. You have um, big company's car and you're not delivering. And I was completely oblivious that they have a personal life because I didn't have any because I was like, okay, I have a wife, so clicked. So, and for me, it was like, why are you taking care of your children? Why are you not answering your phones? You can still hold child's hand and talk to me. Also, wow, it's 10 o'clock in the evening, so we need to do something tomorrow. Why are you not doing that? So I was really not good for the people that worked for me. But that is because the society expects you to do something. And I think the key is that I was doing everything right, but I was doing the wrong things. And that is I believe that our world, our economy is doing everything right. We have all the standards, everything. We know how to do it, but we are doing the wrong thing. We are focusing on the wrong things. I never had a private life, and all I ever wanted was a private life. I wanted to have, I don't know, Sunday off. Oh, I have to fly. So now I'm in Switzerland. Now I have to go to London tomorrow. And we have a new subsidiary in Amsterdam. So we have to be there first thing Monday morning and stuff like that. And instead of just scheduling it a bit off, so I would have my private life, I wouldn't have any private life because I was avoiding my private life. I was running in business to avoid seeing who I am. I'm a person, I have a problem. I have feelings also. And I was completely cut off of my body, of my feelings. Everything was cut off. Business, business, business. And it was a disaster. And this is the biggest challenge is how to be sustainable. Because when you're maximizing profits, when you're maximizing, let's say, share capital and stuff like that, you forget that you're a human being, that you have to take care of your human needs. You have to eat at a certain time in a day. You have to have a time to go for a jog or to go for a swim. And this is more important than answering 3 more emails today or yelling at the secretary why she didn't do that and what is she doing with her kids in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think that was part of my midlife crisis was just not giving a shit anymore about the corporate life of, more and more and more. Uh, you're speaking very true words to me because I was in tech for 25 years and it was just complete more tickets, do more meetings, finish more, you know, get more done. And it was just always a case of more, but it was never, the companies would pay lip service to a work-life balance, but it never really materialized. Uh, I'm curious though, how do people know they're in a midlife crisis? Like mine just kind of hit me like a truck. But I feel like I missed all of these. I have a framework where I call it feather, brick, and truck. And, you know, the life tickles you and you ignore it. And then the brick hits you and you still ignore it. But then you get hit by the truck and you can't ignore it. I got hit by the truck and I'm still like, where the hell did I miss all those other signals?
Yep, it's a really good question because there's a huge discrepancy between pain points and solutions. And as a highly effective people, we're all about solutions. We don't care about pain points because we can endure more. Okay, you said we can answer 5 more tickets today, but instead of going to bed 2 hours early or spending time with kids, it's the midlife crisis. It's something that someone needs to diagnose for you. It comes in a whale of anxiety. It comes in a whale of depression. It comes in a whale of just overworking or handling in handling things so that you work more and you escape your wife because she's bitter because you're never home, and then okay, I'll work more and she'll be okay, and the 2 hours that I meet her in every day, I'll just persevere somehow. And that is the biggest challenge. And I must say, like 80% of our clients are female because they tend to have much better intuition and much better connection to their body that something is off, and they start searching for a solution when they don't feel right. Let's say that they have um, more sensitive body, and when they don't feel right, they will start first looking for doctors, for pills and stuff like that, and then they will try to find a coach, a solution. But with men, it's usually okay. I had a heart attack. Maybe I need to change something, or so we use the truck, and it's same in companies. Why companies are not sustainable, except on the paper? Because the people investing in these companies are not sustainable. The people running these companies are not sustainable. They don't have the slightest clue what sustainable life is. Because the whole system is set to a degree that we're all, let's say, crazy. And we just miss. I really like how the feather, the prick, and the truck. We just miss the feathers. We don't have. Uh, we had to be hit by truck 5 times, and then we'll start thinking. And that is how people joining our community have like second heart attack or diagnosed diabetes or cancer or something like that. And it's okay. I have to change something. Maybe there's something more to it than outside forces. And outside forces and acknowledge it or the higher self, as Jung would call it, the first 40 years of your life is just trial and error. So you're trying things. Then you start growing. And we blame outside forces for whatever happens to us. And only when we are hit by a truck, as you said, we start looking inside. Okay, maybe that was provoked. Maybe I shouldn't. For example, I was almost 60 pounds overweight. And yeah, I'm just strong because I'm weightlifting. So it's not my diet. I'll just train out my diet. No problem if I have a bit more sugar and if I drink club sodas every time. So everyone does it, and it's good for me because it raises my sugar and a lot of caffeine. That is, we don't understand that if we run on caffeine, if we run on energy drinks and on sugar, our body wants us to relax and to rest. Our system is, we have put too much demand on our system, but we don't care because we can drink another coffee, and okay, we'll have 8 coffees a day, no problem, and we'll just eat another candy bar, and we'll just pass through these next 5 emails, and that is the problem, that there is no accountability partner that would say, okay, stop. You, the society is not set at that. For example, Indian societies, they have these elders that were wise. And right now in a company, we have wise people when we pay them and everything, but they're paid by people that want to explore people. They don't want to preserve people. They want to get the maximum out of them. They don't want to get the maximum life out of people. They want to have maximum productivity. And this is a huge challenge because the endless growth is not possible in our life. And that is also an acknowledgement that helps us understand that how we are in the midlife, because we start understanding, okay, so for, let me speak for the US market, for like up to 300,000 a year, your life improves drastically. So you can have better food, you can have better clothes, more quality, not branding, but you can have more healthier home in a better neighborhood and stuff like that. But from 300,000 on, there's not much change. Okay, you can fly private. That might be a change from 300 on. But so if the household gets to 300,000, then you start realizing, okay, maybe instead of 911, I can now ride Ferrari. And that is, but nothing actually changes from 300,000 on. And this is huge acknowledgement for people in the midlife, if they're able to do it. I wasn't for a long time. We don't need infinite power. We don't need infinite resources. There is a certain stage, as I said, 300,000 makes your life much more comfortable. In the US, there's a huge step between 60,000 and 300,000. But from 300,000 to 3 million, the lifestyle does not change. There's a change in your investment strategy, stuff like that. But actually, if you're normal, you don't need more than that. And this is the acknowledgement that also comes in the midlife, because you already have your sports car and all this stuff. And I say, okay, there might be this threshold that I don't need to cross. And this is also with companies. $1 billion company is a huge, let's say, success. But a $1 trillion company, it's not sustainable. And that is, we don't want to, it's same with, for example, we have sequoia trees that are really big, but they cannot grow to 1,000 feet. And they don't need to, because sequoia trees are really big as they are. But you don't need to, because like a tree that grows to maybe 25, maybe 40 feet is great for production, for everything. And it's great. Why would we need 1,000-feet tree? We don't need it. And it's same with, for example, with animal size. We want to supersize everything and stuff like that. We don't need that. And this is the realization that we get when we enter midlife. Okay, so why do I want to make 10 millions a year if I can live really good from 300,000 a year? So where is everything okay with my goals? Are my expectations realistic? Am I willing to die and get a heart attack because I want more than this? So, and usually in midlife, we lose at least our grandparents. And then there is realization, okay, maybe I should spend more time with my grandparents because they were so fun to be around with. And I was not, because I was just answering emails all the time and flying around and stuff like that. So this is, I believe, or it was at least for me, a huge challenge to process. What am I doing in this life? So where am I going, and what's the end game?
There's a lot to unpack there, but from what you were just describing at the end, that out of control desire to conquer and win, and you mentioned Jung and his archetypes. Where I'm going with this is there's another book called The King, the Warrior, the Magician, and the Lover. You might be familiar with it, and what you're describing with that out of balance desire to conquer is maybe that warrior out of balance.
That's the
Is
shadow
that
of the warrior. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Um, is that what the societal expectation is for us to be warriors and conquer more?
Yeah, so the societal expectations go in two directions. Why are we getting in the shadow side of the warrior and not the warrior, the protector type that would just protect our, let's say, existing land? Why do we want to expand all the time? Because our society pushes us in survival mode. And in survival mode, we need huge impulse. So, as you said, we need to be hit by a truck to understand things happening. And that is in USA by 28, 32, everyone is in survival mode. Some yoga teachers might not be, and some housewives might not be, but everyone else is in survival mode for sure. And at that time, because we're in survival mode, our nervous system acts differently because it needs huge impulses, but when it gets these inputs, then it responds with the urge or there's a huge response. That is why we don't, as you said, we are not able to react to the feathers because we're already in survival mode. And our threshold for information, just our point of view basically gets narrower because we just want to see who's in our way. We need to survive. We're already flying. And that is why we get in survival mode. That's the most certain way that you get in the shadows of all your dominant archetypes. And that is the answer why we want to conquer, because we are so afraid to stop, to feel ourselves, to say, okay, I've conquered, I don't know, I have 300,000 a year, I have a house, I have a family, that's it, just stop here. But what we are in survival mode, that cannot be it. There's more. There's Elon Musk having 400 billions, and I just have a million of equity in my home. That's such a frustration, this stuff. And this is the challenge that we as a society have. I don't say that there are not people that are able to handle much more than others. But as I say, the high achievers that work with me, and there are 20 millions of them, they're a huge benefit for society. I would even dare to say that society wouldn't run without them, that they are the ones contributing the most because they get things done. But the expectations are so unrealistic. For example, my biggest challenge in my 20s was I was competing with my colleagues, investment bankers in their 50s, 60s. And if you know compound interest, that's almost impossible. But I was competing all the time. And the biggest problem that I had was that I did not understand that. And before I got hit by a truck, I was just go there. I have to compete. Warren Buffett, I'm smarter than he is. So I'll just leverage more because he's stupid. He doesn't use leverage. And I'll just hedge this leverage somehow. And then let's see what happens. And this is what you're doing in survival mode. Because if I would see Warren Buffett a bit differently, for example, and see, okay, he's still living in the same house. Why am I changing houses all the time if he's still living in one of his house when he was living when he was like 40 years old? So I should be okay with my house. And he's driving an okay car. So why do I need to have limited edition Porsches just to feel okay about myself? So I didn't understand that dynamics. And I said, okay, I'm better because I drive better car than he is. And that is this competition. And this is the warrior that wants to compete and that wants to conquer because you're in survival mode. And when you get out of the survival mode, we get post-traumatic stress disease like warriors get. And regardless in which business you are, when you stop, you're still traumatized by all the things that you did in the past and how you didn't care about your family enough. So why didn't you visit your grandma when she was still alive? And that is a huge burden to carry. And that this realization, they come in in the midlife. And that is why the midlife crisis strikes us.
The talk of the warrior resonates. From when I was divorced, I got into competition mode and I was like, this is not going to beat me. I'm going to fight and scrap. And, that worked for a long time. I made more money than ever. I had a bigger house. I had a nicer car. It worked until it didn't. After that collapse, since then, I have very little competition. Like, I don't want to compete with anybody at this point. It's more about finding who I am uniquely and operating from that place. So my question here is for you personally, and I'm still kind of adjusting to this. This is still a work in progress. But I'm curious about you. After you had your truck moment, what did you start doing differently?
Okay, so I was under impression that I should just go offline and try farming life and everything like that because nothing made sense anymore. And I had a lot of repressed anger in myself. And so it was good for me to work in the forest and stuff like that because then you can yell there and X is a good therapy, I said. And I started doing that and I spent a lot of time with my animals, goats, and stuff like that. But the idea that I'm now preaching, because that was too hard. If I had a family to take care of, I couldn't do that. And most people cannot do that because they have some kind of ties to something, and you should not just cut and go off and tell everyone to F off. It's important that we understand competition is healthy and it improves human race. But we need to understand when we are competing and when we have to collaborate. And as a society, we have the biggest chance right now because we are competing with our spouse, and that's not the way to win. And we are competing on the street. We want to be faster, or at least our car needs to have better 0 to 60 time when we're driving, even if we don't speed. Then we have to make more money. And also, basically, what we don't choose one thing to compete. For example, a researcher or researcher's dream is Nobel Prize for a research or for an area that you cover. But this same researcher should not compete at every stoplight to be the fastest from 0 to 60. They should not compete to make the most money because they compete in one category. And it's same in sports. We rarely see good athletes competing in multiple disciplines. They specialize in one sport and they perfect it. And they compete at this sport. But they don't compete in 5 different sports. In our lives, we want to compete always. And that is the shadow of this warrior or the one that is for competition. We don't know where to compete and where to collaborate. And our society as a whole, as Jung would call it, unconscious, pushes us to compete on all fronts. And that is a huge problem. If I may go in Instagram and social media, we follow 10 people. This one, how much money it makes, and we compare it with this one. This one has a nicer car than we have. Okay, we now want to compete with this one. This one has a yacht. We want to compete with his yacht. This one has a great cottage in Whistler. We have to have cottage in Whistler. So we are now competing in 10 different disciplines simultaneously. And that is why we are already in survival mode, and that is pushing us towards burnout. If we would compete in one discipline and not all the time, because if we would spend, for example, 1/4 or 1/3 of the time competing, and we would have balanced life. We would have a private life. We would have our social circuit. We would spend some time in nature. We would take care of our food and stuff like that so that everything would be balanced. Then we would have no problem to compete in one discipline. But not that we just don't compete, let's say 1/4 of the time, but we're competing all the time and in all disciplines. And that is the problem that will bring us towards burnout. And that is also the same problem that sparks or triggers so many frustrations in us. And that makes us ungrateful because we're not winning in all the disciplines. And then we're entitled to win. But we're unrealistic because we're competing, as I said, in too many disciplines.
I never thought of it that way. Compete in one discipline, not all of them.
And I don't think competition is bad per se, but you know when to compete and when not to compete. You know, there is a time to be angry and there is a time to be sad. But if you're always angry, then this is a problem. If you're always smiling, okay, maybe we call that perfect life, but it's not because we have all the feelings and our body is designed to use all the feelings. So we're allowed to be sad, especially if something bad happens to us. We're allowed. We have to be. We have to take time to, for example, if our relatives die, we have to take time to mourn, to get through it. It's a phase. It's a process. We should release this pain from our side. We should not just put on a happy face and okay, let's go work. I'll just work a bit more so that I forget about what happened. And this is a huge challenge in our society because they all expect us to be happy all the time. And we cannot be. We have all the emotions and everything. I'm all about positive attitude, but let's be realistic. If the pain is too great, if you lose someone, if you lose a friend, if you get divorced, there's a time that you have to take that you go through that. And you can postpone it, but it will haunt you in the future if you don't, because all the traumas, all the grudges, all the fears, they need to leave we have to feel them and release them from our body. And if we don't, we create, like holistic medicine would call it, energy blocks. And there is where the illnesses come.
You say 80% of your clients are female. What would you say to men to get them into their bodies or paying attention to their bodies so that they do this work sooner?
Society pushes us to remove our mind from our body, not to listen to our intuition, not to listen to our body. And because female body is meant for reproduction and reproduction is, let's say, demanding, they really need to take care of their body in order to stay fertile. They're more in their body. But men have huge problem because they can compensate their body or lack of the development of their body with financial stability, let's call it like this. And there's no way for a fat guy like what I used to be to attract a beautiful girl. If you drive a right car and if you have a big enough yacht and stuff like that, they don't care that you're fat. You're just, they will say you're a bear. If you're without money, then you're a pig. But if you, so the animal kingdom changes a bit in the description. But, and there is the lack of initiatives, especially for successful people. And our society does not work with accountability partner installed. Because our traditional family, where you had your dad and your granddad, they would be to the extent your accountability partner and say, okay, you have to think more long term, you have to think more about society, you have to take care of yourself. Indians had this retired chief that would go around and say, what, this is not good for our elders, do not agree with that. And the spirits will be mad, so watch out what you're doing. But now, because of the lack of all this religion, let's say, institution that would help us establish or could take on a bit of this, and this hyper individualization, we don't have accountability partnership. And it's hard for a man to establish accountability partners. Because, for example, what clients ask of me, or ask me is show me that you make more money than I am doing, that I'm having, and then I will follow your advice. If you don't make more money than I do, I won't follow your advice. And I cannot disclose my statements and all the money because that is how our family trust is set. So I'm not able to discuss anything money related. I just said, okay, I have enough to eat and stuff like that. That is the actually the sentences that I can use. But then they said, oh, you're just bluffing. I make more money than you do. And
It's the wrong question anyway.
yeah, but this is where because males, they want to follow someone that is they consider is better than them. And female, they want to follow someone that can protect them, but in a sense of emotional protection that can hold space for them. And what I notice, especially in the beginning of working with men, we need to be more cheerleading than drill instructor ish. So we have to be really careful because man ego is much more fragile than female ego. Because when women come, they have acknowledged that they have a problem. When men come, they pay, let's say, decent amounts, but they're still exploring. So I'm just watching if you can help me. Maybe I don't have a problem. That is the attitude, because we are high performers. We are not allowed to discuss that we have a problem. We should not admit our problem at any cost. Fake it till you make it. But with business, that might be the case. I rarely see that. But with mental health, fake it till you break it. That is with mental health, or at least that's my advice. And I feel that because I was the same. I was under impression. Okay, I wrote. So I read all these books. I went to all these seminars, and I know all these important people and everything, so I'll just get a solution on my own. I'll Google it a bit, and now they would go to LLMs, so like ChatGPT and Gemini and all this, and they will ask them and use them as a therapist. But the therapy is a theory, and I believe LLMs can be really good in theory, but the reflection part, what we say, I feel you. LLMs or ChatGPT or Gemini, they can say I feel you, but they cannot feel you because they don't have a body. This is the most important part when you get a coach or a mentor, or they need to feel you. They need to understand that they need to see if you're hiding your grief, if you're hiding your anger, or if you're masking your anger, and what you're doing. That is, so someone needs really to get, they need to resonate with you. They need to feel your vibe and say, okay, you're really good at this end, but there's a way to improve on the other part of your lives. And I'm always pushing, you have to have a private life if you want to have a good, so private life, family life, peers, if you want to have good business. And if you just work on your business and you just somehow forget about private life, the long term, this will not work.
I'm curious about the quote you have on your website. Not everything that shines is gold, and not all mud is dirty. What does that mean to your life now?
Okay. So I was chasing gold for a lot of times, and I was chasing shiny objects for a lot of time. I was literally chasing gold for probably 10 years in Africa and also Canada. But it did not bring me luck. It did not bring me satisfaction. And it basically destroyed me. Yes, I was greedy as you can expect of investment banker. I was not doing the right thing. I was not investing time, money, and resources in the right things. But on the other hand, after my burnout, after all the bankruptcies that happened to me, because of doing everything wrong or doing everything right but doing the wrong things. I acknowledge that this was the best thing that ever happened to me, because this was the truck moment, and I needed that. And if this would happen to me sooner, maybe I could acknowledge things. And that is why not all mud is dirty, because a lot of times you think something is dirty, but for example, manure, if you are in the farm, manure is dirty, but it's the best thing that can happen to you, because it will make your plants grow much faster and bigger. So that is how I see this. Chasing gold and shiny things might be part of your life, but it's extremely hard to put an end to it because it's addictive. And playing the risks and stuff like that, it's addictive. It's like gambling. It's like alcohol. It's like drugs. So it's a handling mechanism. You're running away from yourself. That is the challenge that I see.
I'd like to wrap this up with a question around how do you see midlife changing over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years? Do you think it'll be different from, that midlife of dumping your wife, chasing the secretary? Do you think it's going to change form?
Yes. I believe there's going to be a huge decline. So the midlife will become more and more obvious. So midlife crisis will become bigger and bigger problem for society, not just for individuals. Because, and I cannot stress that enough, because midlifers run every country, every company, everything is run by midlifers. And if they don't have their life in order, that's a huge problem for the whole society. Everything becomes unsustainable. Everything is narrowed down to KPI. And in this digital world, everything comes down to 0 or 1. But our life is a full circle. It's not just 0 and 1. We need to live a full life. And full life is not 1. A full life is many zeros and many ones. A full life is all our relationship, our health, and our business first in tune with each other, but somehow building and working close together for the best results. And that these best results are not the most money, but the best life in a sense of how full you can live your life, how well you can get to know yourself. What is the one thing that you want to achieve?
If you have time for one more question, because I'm curious, um, what advice do you have for the man who's stuck in the middle, or the woman? What's one move they can make right now if they feel something's not right, but they have everything? What do you suggest to them?
I'll give you two answers. One will be strictly commercial. Get in our free group membership. That is a commercial answer. And there are a lot of resources. Other is the biggest, because a lot of men think as a life as an investment. The best investment possible is a healthy diet, psychotherapy, and a lot of free time. Regulated nervous system is the new bragging credential. Your sports car will start losing money fast. That is my prediction. But your regulated nervous system will be worth more and more. And this is the biggest guarantee for your longevity.
Peter, I want to say thank you for being generous with your time and your wisdom. This was very enlightening. Something I haven't thought a lot about. So I'm glad that you're doing this work and you're out there. If anybody's interested, please give us the commercial.
So usually LinkedIn is the best place to get in touch if you want to get in touch directly with me. If you want to get in our community, it's membership.orgon-wellness. The community, the first layer is free, so everyone can listen to our podcasts, to our, let's say, first phase webinars, our guests, all this stuff is possible. And then they can upgrade if they want group coaching, if they want individual coaching, and there are retreats and a lot of this stuff that we're doing. So if you got something useful of that, you can always get in touch, and I'm sure we have a resource that will help you identify if you are in a midlife crisis. And also our groups are named like this. Awakening is the free tier. Then we go to exploring. Then we go to the dedicated. Then we go to pro, and then to the VIP. So awakening is when you start, okay, something is off in my life. I feel stuck. That's awakening. Okay. And then exploring, okay, I have to do something about it. I will start listening, let's say, to the podcast and stuff like that. So if you are listening to this podcast, you're already exploring. And then when you said, okay, I don't want to suffer, I don't want this frustration of feeling off, then you become dedicated and you start working towards a better life, more clarity, better health, better relationship, and of course, all these results usually in better financial position.
Peter, thank you very much for your time. I'll have those links in the notes below. So hit them if you are exploring or awakening or ready for some help. Peter, thank you very much.
Thank you
Thanks for
for
your
having
wisdom.
me. Thank you for listening to my story.
Take care.